For 30 years, these former Hull skippers, Mason Redfern and Walter Lewis, kept a secret, which makes a mockery of that government denial. They even kept it from each other, until now. For years, they spied for the British.
Well, I was approached by the owner of the ships I was sailing in, and introduced to a commander, a naval commander, and he asked us if I would do this spying.
I don't know if it's the same commander, but it was a naval commander who approached me in the office and instructed me to, I won't say requested, instructed me to take whatever photographs I could in those regions.
Redfern was even sent on a week-long training course.
We were taken to London, put up in a hotel, and then I was given the time to meet the commander under the clock, just outside Victoria Station. A big black limousine arrived, and he introduced me to the two guys in the back. And from that day, we were picked up at a different spot and taken to Gravesend. He used to tell me, you know, take photographs of aerials on the other ships or radars. And there were merchant ships or unloading cargo and things.
At the end of the training course, they issued him with a camera specially designed for photo reconnaissance.
You can wind it up and it'll take about 48 shots rapidly. You can just take as many as you want. Every trip I went to the Barents Sea, if I saw a Russian ship, I would take a photograph. Radar systems, any guided missile systems. Numbers were the main because they kept changing them.
And did they give you any means of identifying particular ships?
Yes, we gave me identification books on. These are cruisers, Russian cruisers.
And, oh, here we have...
And I've marked some of them off when I've seen them in times.
These are ones that you've seen here?
Yeah.
The Northern Fleet was the pride of the Soviet Navy. To this day, its bases on the freezing seas around Murmansk and Severomorsk remain closed to the west, their entrance guarded by the looming bulk of Kildene Island.
When they were having manoeuvres, I could tow right into the 12-mile off Kildene Island, and I could watch them coming down from the fjords from Murmansk, and they used to go behind Kildene to wait for the following morning, and I used to be fishing there waiting. Maybe 6 o'clock they would all come out.
Now, we had here the hunter-killer submarines which would come out here and presumably right down
into the
Atlantic. And you also had the nuclear submarines which would wait in this area, from where they could fire ballistic missiles over the pole.
That's it, yeah.
To America. It's almost impossible to imagine somewhere in the Cold War more dangerous.
I don't think well, at the time we didn't think nothing of it, but now we're finding out it was very, very dangerous what we were doing, or asked to do by the government.
With the side-scan sonar deployed 800 feet below, the search for the Gaul begins in earnest. We start the laborious process of slowly trawling up and down in a grid pattern designed to cover every inch of our 7 square kilometre search area. In the cramped control room, the side-scan operator Christian Lissam and Dr. Chris Davis of Cardiff University's Maritime Studies Department carefully examine the sonar printout.
It's very hit and miss, but the important thing is that you get total coverage of the seabed.
So we could be at this for hours, yeah?
Yes.
It's on the sonar that we'll first detect any signs of a wreck. For some of those on board who have lived for 23 years with the loss of the Gaul, this is a difficult and poignant moment.
Yeah, there's my brother. He was 23. He was real happy-go-lucky. He sort of lived for the day. I remember as he was older, when he was going to sea, when he came home laughing.
very good ship, the Gaul. Very, very good. The best I've ever sailed in. And I've sailed in quite a few. And, you know, I would have staked my life on it. She would take anything she was thrown at her.
And for former skippers Redfern and Lewis, there's an additional poignancy. This is the first time they've returned to the spying grounds since they retired.
I just thought it was my job as a true Brit. Thought no more of it.
At the time we didn't think much of it really, what we was doing.
Ignorance is bliss, isn't it? We thought there was no danger.
But the danger was real.
Because as we've established, Soviet intelligence knew from the beginning that the British were using trawlers to spy. Indeed, in the Soviet naval archives here in Russia, we found this secret report from 1952. It's addressed to Bulganin, the Soviet defense minister and Politburo member. It's copied to Stalin, and it reads, "English vessels have been carrying out systematic surveillance of our coastline, shadowing every movement by ships of the Northern Fleet and studying our vessels."
The Russian suspicions were well founded. By the time the Gaul went down in 1974, shadowy figures from British naval intelligence and MI6 had created an elaborate civilian spying operation on a scale far greater than anyone has previously realized. An exercise whose day-to-day operation was coordinated in Hull by one man.
What can you tell me about this man?
God, that's my boss. That's the man who I met under the clock in London. Commander Brooks.
Commander Brooks.
Yeah.
Commander Brooks, Commander John Geoffrey Brooks, DSC MBE, operated out of a small nondescript office in what used to be the Hull headquarters of the White Fish Authority. But Commander Brooks wasn't terribly interested in white fish. He was in fact an intelligence officer, spy master to the Hull trawler fleet. Commander Brooks died in 1971, but by then the work was well established. Indeed, our evidence shows that at least 50 Hull trawlers were involved in the spying operations set up by the commander.
One tripper came home from sea and there he was, introduced himself as Commander Brooks, and had we seen any Russian naval craft exercise or anything, and if we had, could we recognise any by the silhouettes he carried?
He turned up at our office one morning and picked us up with a very nice camera, a long-range lens. And, well, I used to fish a lot at White Sea during the summer months. And there were submarines passing nearly every day, so we just simply snapped them.
Had we been caught doing this thing, they were quite within their rights to take us away. Now then, had they have done that, whoever, would have admitted, oh, yeah, that ship was spying for us? I can't think of anyone who would have admitted that.
Indeed, during the course of making this programme, we became aware of attempts by the Ministry of Defence to dissuade people from talking to us. In fact, the authorities have on occasion been so desperate to keep the operation secret that almost laughably they've even resorted to denying it to the very men carrying out the work.
One or two of us started making inquiries about this thing. The powers that be, the men in the grey suits, denied all knowledge of this. They said, who is this Commander Brooks? According to them, it never existed. It very much did so.
But while barefaced lies might work for faceless bureaucrats, they'd be less used to fishermen caught in the act of photographing the Soviet fleet. Or worse, because we have obtained details of operations in the Barents Sea which involved civilian trawlermen in missions far more compromising than just taking photographs.